So I thought I would do a little live. There were a couple questions that were posted in the group, which were awesome questions, about what to do when diets don't work and how to live a normal life when having eczema. So, super relevant for everybody. And also, feel free to post any questions like this. Always happy to hop on and have a little chat. So, yeah, one of the girls had just said, sorry to be skeptical, but skepticism is really good because you need to have certainty in a process and yourself to be able to get results. So thank you for reaching out and asking the questions. So if you've been struggling with your skin, if you've done the diets and you've seen dermatologists, doctors, naturopaths, herbalists, acupuncturists, and if you've done everything and you're still struggling to find a balance, then this is what we're going to chat about today. So there are some really good questions. So the first one is, I know my triggers, but how do I manage them? So I see a couple people are live right now. If that's you know your triggers, let me know in the comments. Let me know which comment or what triggers you've identified. If you haven't, just let me know as well. And if you guys have any questions along the way, if you're tuning in now or if you're tuning in later, pop them in the comments. So I know my triggers. How do I manage them? So this is a common question and issue that I get all the time because people are like, well, I either have to continue doing this elimination diet and live in a bubble, or I have to struggle with the flare up. And it doesn't have to be black and white like that. So first things you need to address is, are your triggers an allergy? So an IgE allergy, and you can tell by a blood test or doing the patch tests, or is it IgG, which is an intolerance or a sensitivity, and then those can be healed, and we can heal that from the inside out. So if it is an actual allergy, that's not something that will change because that is a more permanent immune response. But what we can do is we can essentially address that your immune response to that allergen. And because whenever we have, so with eczema, it's essentially a confused immune system. So this is what we're balancing, and that's part of getting to the root cause. So the first step, so when you know your triggers, it's good to avoid them because that's getting the drops in the bucket down. And I always use that analogy that all of your triggers are drops. And then all of a sudden, when you're just suffering from a flare up, the drops and the water is overflowing from the bucket. So, in the other videos, if you haven't watched some of the other videos, what doctors and dermatologists don't tell you, your healthcare providers, tune into that one. So the whole idea with managing eczema is to get the drops in the bucket down. And so there was another good question when they're saying, well, how can I keep my drops down? So if you know your triggers, avoiding it's good, but that's not the long-term solution. And when I say diets can be almost like a band-aid solution as well, it's because you're not getting to the root of the cause. Why do you have these intolerances? Why are you getting triggered? So you need to always dig deeper. And what we do is when we have the drops in the bucket overflowing, the aim of the game is to drain the bucket by supporting your elimination organs. And then that's how you can help drain the bucket. So you don't always just have to avoid all of your triggers. Let me know if that makes sense to you guys. Which flows on to the next question quite well. I healed my gut. Why can't I eat normal? So first of all, you have to kind of define how you healed your gut. So depending on what protocol you did, how long you did it for, what supplements you used, was it a therapeutic dose? And then, first of all, how do you define that? And then why did you heal your gut? Which hopefully that why is what determined what you did for the healing protocol. Because did you have leaky gut? Was it dysbiosis? What was happening in your gut? What symptoms did you have to start healing it? Or was it just a random one from your skin? So there's a lot of different mechanisms there. And then you want to understand, because people will think finding their triggers is getting to the root cause. It's not. People will think healing their gut is getting to the root cause. It's not. You need to understand what, like, why did you have leaky gut or dysbiosis? So understanding that mechanism is going to be helpful, because if you heal your gut, but you still have the same issues, for example, you're always exposed to inflammatory foods, lots of stress, specific medications, then if you're still exposed to those triggers for your gut, we're talking about here, then you're still going to have that irritation, if that makes sense. And then, so those are kind of baseline. And then, okay, you healed your gut, but what if your gut wasn't the issue? So the gut's always good to start off with, because that's the basis of all health. If you're not breaking down your food and absorbing it, or if you're not pooing and releasing all the toxins, definitely that needs to be addressed first. But a lot of the times, especially if it's a chronic situation where you've had eczema your whole life, it's not typically just going to be gut related. There'll be more going on as well. So that's when you have to keep digging. And let me know, for the people that are watching, have you guys addressed gut health at all? Do you guys experience any gut symptoms like bloating, gas, not going poo 1 to 3 times a day? Let me know in the comments. So the next question is, will I ever be able to eat normal again? It's a really good question. So again, going back to, is this an allergy, or is this an intolerance or a food sensitivity? So if it's an allergy, if you're celiac, or if you have a dairy allergy, then you're going to have to avoid those because of that immune response. If you're allergic to peanuts, yeah. But again, you can help modulate your immune system in terms of the allergens. Oh no, sorry. I was thinking that's going to be going a little bit too deep. So if it's a food intolerance, which is when you're getting the IgG blood tests, or if you're looking at salicylates, histamines, that sort of thing, then yeah, you can eat normal again. So again, it's not about just avoiding those foods. It's about getting to the root cause. Why do you have those intolerances and sensitivities? Is it your gut? Is it your liver? Is it a hidden infection? That's why it's so important to get to the root cause, so you know what you're working with. And then that way you can do that work healing, and your body, and you're essentially the drops. If your body's a bucket, and the elimination roots are going to help drain that bucket. So that's why it's really important to understand, especially when you're going and doing these protocols, like a gut healing protocol, or working on your liver, you need to be understanding the mechanisms and why those little drainage passages aren't working, so then you can heal that, if that makes sense. So yeah, and so the whole thing is that actually, and the next question flows in quite well. How can I travel, live life, and have good skin? So, and this kind of ties into how can I eat normal again? Because you want to be able to travel, you want to be able to go for dinner, you want to be able to go to a friend's house and not have to bring your own meals. Totally get that. Like, I was there, and I was that annoying person for a long time because I was yo-yoing on these crazy restricted diets. But so the whole idea is to understand what your body's telling you. So to understand what the root cause is for you, what your triggers are, and like I call it the flare-up control blueprint. So when you feel, so you know exactly what to back off of to get those drops in the bucket down. And so you can heal yourself from the inside out by looking at your symptoms, where that's coming from. And then the long-term approach, because eczema is a chronic condition, if it's not just contact dermatitis, if it's something you've had since you're a kid, it's something that you do need to live with, and it's about understanding what's triggering and having a protocol that's based on your symptoms, your body. And so when you can feel like the first signs of a flare-up, so it can usually, sometimes it's a bit tingly, or it's kind of those red rashes, and then like a little bit red, then you know exactly what to do to prevent that from turning into a full-blown flare-up that lasts for weeks. And over time, like, the cool thing is that over time, you notice that your threshold and your tolerance to whatever your triggers are, your threshold narrows, which is really cool. I should actually get Lucy, one of my clients, who she must have finished almost about a year ago now, but she yeah, like she'll message when she goes away, and she's like, oh my gosh, like I went on holidays and I was able to eat, gluten, dairy, ice cream, all of this, and didn't get a full flare up. And then also she just like trigger season in Australia has just happened. So instead of having a flare up for a month, she got a bit triggered and then was able to bounce back. She had that resilience, which is essentially what we're doing here. It's creating resilience for your body so your body can bounce back, instead of just being under the pump and struggling. And the drops in the bucket are up to here. I hope that made sense. I went on a bit of a tangent there. Yeah, cool. Miriam, great question. She just said, from what I understand, an allergic reaction can also cause eczema. Yep. So, yeah, so you can have, so your eczema can be a secondary outcome of an allergic reaction. So if you notice, for example, trigger season, so when the pollens, there are a lot of pollens in the air, grass, if you get hay fever and those allergy hay fever symptoms first, then you get eczema, that's the secondary reaction. Um, so if it is from food, the allergy, then um, the question was, so how can you notice a difference from a food allergy from an intolerance? So an allergy will be immediate. So you'll notice that right away, the symptoms. So a good example is if you, well, this is more cross reactivity proteins, but if you notice that your lips or your throat start to tingle, swell up immediately after you eat, typically this will happen during the change of seasons. And also if you have an allergy to birch, grass, different types of trees, there could be a cross reactivity in the proteins. If anybody does notice those, I can also do another live. So let me know in the comments below. So if you have any reactions, so back to your question, Miriam, if you have any reactions right away, directly after you had the foods, then you'll know that's an allergy. Whereas an intolerance or sensitivity will show up to 3 days later. So that's where it gets tricky. And that's where it can get tricky, especially if people are doing the elimination diets and they're not doing it properly. There's a couple different ways in terms of reintroducing foods. But like the whole idea is you can't just do an elimination diet and just yo-yo back and forth, because you're never going to know. You'll always be back at square one. Because if all of a sudden you just restrict all this food and then you binge and eat, of course you're going to get a flare up and you're not going to know what it is. We were chatting about that in one of the calls today. It's like, if you just all of a sudden you go on one of these diets and then you grab a bunch of pizza, grab a bunch of chips, chocolate, and ice cream, yeah, of course, you're going to flare up and you have no idea what it is. And then you just keep yo-yoing back and forth. I hope that answered your question, Miriam. So the last one here, I've seen naturopaths. How is the Love Your Skin program different? So, well, first of all, I guess I'd want to see what you did, because looking at what you've tried in the past is all data. So it helps us understand what worked for you, what didn't. And then the difference is also, like, I specialize in skin health and gut health, so I live and breathe it every day. So definitely seeing somebody who works specifically in one field is helpful, obviously, instead of trying to research everything. And also, like, this is how I developed the program as well, because I was working with a bunch of clients and there's trial and error. So the reason why I have it 12 weeks is because if you just give somebody, if I say, do all of these things, and I speak to you once, you're not going to do it all and you're not going to stick to it for 12 weeks, or, eczema is a long-term game. So that's why I created the program to be 12 weeks. So every week we hop on a call, we talk about what worked, what doesn't, we course correct if something doesn't work, because having eczema isn't black and white. There's so many different triggers and it's completely different for everybody. So you can't do an out of the box program. And if you can, that's great. But most people that I speak to, that just hasn't worked. And that's why I usually start working with them, because there's not just one solution. So what we do, it's about, like I always say, unraveling the different pieces of the layer to get to the root cause. So looking at your symptoms, looking at blood tests, functional tests to understand what's happening inside your body, so we can get to the root cause and then put together a little protocol based on what's happening for you. So that is all it in a nutshell. So for anybody who is interested in the program or has any questions, I do eczema clarity calls. And so those are just a chance so I can get a better idea of what's going on for you, in terms of your journey, what you're experiencing, what you've tried, what worked, what hasn't, and to look at the missing piece of the puzzle. So to see, if you're a good fit for the program, and then also I can explain, if you are, then I can explain how the program works. And either way, you can walk away from the call with a lot of knowledge. I'm always happy to answer all questions about nutrition, skin health. So if you are interested, send me a DM. Otherwise, I hope that was helpful. If you guys do have any questions, pop them in the comments. And this made me think of this talk that I used to do. It's not food, it's you. So I might actually organize another webinar based on that. So if you are interested in that, I can maybe run that in a week or two. So let me know in the comments below. So essentially that's just talking about how everybody blames food and everybody thinks that it's food that's the problem, but it's actually you. It's how you are reacting to foods. And then that's cool because you can change that relationship with food from good and bad to, okay, well, I just need to heal my body and then I can tolerate them better. All right, anyways, I will let you guys all go. I could speak for hours. I hope that was helpful. Any questions, let me know, and I'll see you in the group.